Coming up to the stage now, this guy needs no introduction. All right, pretty known guy, pretty popular guy, just to say the least. He was on the homecoming ballot this year. President of Latino Caucus. He even ran for student body president. Just a few things that he does around campus. He will be discussing a student who has his own DACA story, in DACA, D-A-C-A, his own story, so it'll be pretty interesting. Please welcome to the stage Mr. Jorge Zurita Coronado, please.
Hello, everybody. I'd like to begin by asking you a question. When's the first time you ever had a dream that you seemed so far out of reach? Perhaps it was getting into the top grad school of your choice, or getting a job offer from your dream job. You hope and you work hard and you put in the work necessary to make your dream a reality, but sometimes, even though you work so hard, that dream still seems so far out of reach. What if you lacked the ability to control whether your dream became a reality or not? For some students here at Penn State, their seemingly unachievable dream is to have the right to remain in this country, a place that they have called home for the majority of their life. And for them, this dream is out of their control. They can't control whether it will happen or not. It's in somebody else's hands. They want the reality to be a place where they are seen as equals in the eyes of our government and in the eyes of our society. And as a result of politics in Washington and a broken immigration system, this dream continues to be out of reach for them. And for a time, it seemed that their dream had become a partial reality. In June 2012, President Barack Obama signed the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, known as DACA. Under this program, individuals who had come to this country as small children by their parents and had remained in the country would be eligible for a deferred action from deportation and be eligible to work within the country. Deferred action meaning that they would not be deported and they would have the legal right to work and remain within the country. Under the program, these individuals would have to have a renewable 2-year deferred action, meaning that every 2 years they would have to reapply for this program. For many, this seemed as though this was the light at the end of the tunnel, that finally we were talking about what to do with these dreamers, and that finally Congress would take up action about what to do with these dreamers. It was an indication that something might happen next. Unfortunately, we're now in 2018 and we don't live in those times. And months ago, President Donald Trump has put an end to this program, once again putting the lives of these dreamers at risk, not knowing what will happen to them. There are some Americans who believe that these individuals should be sent back to where they came from. They are criminals. They don't belong here. And then there are some others who believe that they are as American as you and I. They didn't choose to come here. Their parents brought them here. Let's be clear. Like I said, these dreamers did not have a choice about whether or not they came here. They didn't have input about where mom or dad would move to, and they were brought here by their parents. And many of these dreamers don't even realize that they're undocumented until it's time to apply for a driver's license, a credit card, or federal financial aid when they get accepted into college. And while reading this in the news and watching CNN or Fox News, this reality and this issue may seem so far away from our campus. That's not true. There are dreamers here at Penn State, at University Park, across our Commonwealth campuses who live with this reality every single day of their lives. And today, I would like to talk to you about one of these dreamers. I hope that her story will help me paint a picture of what it means to be a dreamer at Penn State. What has her life been growing up in Pittsburgh? How has the politics of Washington affected her life growing up and being here at Penn State? I want to tell you the story of Fernanda. Like her, And like all of us here, we all live busy lives. She's a junior here, majoring in in international politics and Spanish. Her father was a practicing dentist in Mexico, and her family lived a very comfortable life in Mexico until security and the safety of her family became an issue. For her family, as her father being a dentist, they had a target on their back. They were a target to crime, to robbery, and Fernanda's father realized that working in the kitchens of Pittsburgh restaurant, he was able to provide for his family far more than being a dentist in Mexico. Now, the family would travel from Mexico to the United States on a travel's visa from time to time. They would visit family here. But like I said, Fernanda's father realized that this country that he had loved, that he had grown up himself in, was no place to raise a family. And like many times before, the family packed up their things. They used that same travel visa they had done before, but now this time realizing there was no coming back to the country that they loved. You know, growing up in Pittsburgh was tough for Fernanda. Her language that she spoke was different. Her culture was different. And unlike her peers, she was undocumented. When I sat down and talked with her, we talked about, her growing up, and I asked her, what was the toughest thing? The toughest thing was having to prove to everybody that she belonged here. And she used her grades as a mechanism to prove to the people around her that she belonged in this country. Her grades still mean so much to her. She tells me that it allows her to feel normal, as she describes it. However, Fernanda never thought about whether college was for her. In her mind, she always believed that she would get to college, knowing far too well that for many high schoolers like her, being undocumented meant you could not pursue a degree because you did not have the proper paperwork. She realized that there's no point in me worrying about this now. It's out of my control. So she went on and on throughout her high school career, not worrying about it. She couldn't control it. Then in June 2012, everything changed for Fernanda when President Barack Obama announced DACA. For Fernanda, it now meant that there was a clear path for her college career. She no longer had to worry about whether she would ever have the opportunity to apply to colleges, and she would no longer have to fear deportation. It was a weight lifted off her shoulders of her and her family. And then it came time to apply for colleges. She had visited Penn State before, and she knew she couldn't see herself anywhere else but here in Happy Valley. Being a college student is hard, as we all can probably relate. But for our undocumented peers, there's far more struggles than just being a college student. As a DACA student, you're not eligible for any federal or state financial aid. And on top of that, regardless of how long you have lived in the state of Pennsylvania, you are not eligible for in-state tuition. So rather than paying the $18,000 that I myself, as a longtime Pennsylvania resident, Fernanda, who has lived in Pittsburgh for her entire life, has to pay $34,000. To me, that doesn't sound fair. When Fernanda came to Penn State, her undocumented status still gave her issues. She remembers vividly the first interaction she had when she had to go into the register and bursar offices. She had to explain to the staff there what DACA was. She had to explain to them what a dreamer was. Now, our university employees are great, but we should figure out, that these students who have already been through so much shouldn't have to explain what it means to be a dreamer or a DACA student. She often found herself, that wasn't the first or only time she would have to do this, have to educate individuals she worked with, university employees, on what it meant to be a DACA student. The message that President Trump's decision reaffirms that Fernanda and other dreamers do not belong here. Today, the future of Fernanda and over 800,000 other dreamers across this country are in jeopardy once again. DACA will be fully rescinded March 5th. And recently, a court ordered the Trump administration to restart the program, saying that their action was unconstitutional. President Trump responds by, "We will take this to the Supreme Court." Each and every single day, dreamers like Fernanda have to struggle about what will tomorrow bring. They live day by day, week by week, not knowing what their future in this country will be like. Knowing that far too well, tomorrow might be her last day in this country, not able to complete her education, not able to complete her Penn State degree, something that she had worked so hard to accomplish. And now here we are, together in this room. And still, Senate Democrats and President Trump have not been able to decide what to do with Fernanda and the 800,000 other dreamers here across the country. These dreamers are tired of having to be bargaining chips. They're tired of it. All our dreamers want is to be accepted by the place that they have called home for their entire lives. They are a part of our Penn State community. So ask yourselves, what are you doing to support your fellow Penn Staters? We talk so much about being all in. We talk so much about we are all Penn State, that we play all or we play none. But when it comes to dreamers, it seems as though we are playing some, not all. We must all do more, myself included. While you may not personally know a dreamer or a DACA student, know that they are among us. That in good faith, we do not have the right to do nothing. You, we, I do not have the right to do nothing. Our American ideals call upon us to grant these undocumented immigrants a pathway to citizenship. We must lift them up from the shadows and allow them to be who they are, without fear of deportation, without fear of being who they are. Dreamers are hardworking young people. They are our teachers. They serve in our military. They are our neighbors and our classmates. Dreamers are American in every sense of the word, except on paper. Fighting for these dreamers is far more than just fighting for immigrants. It's about fighting for the American dream and fighting for what it means to be an American. So now, what will you do to help support these students? We can begin by stop pretending like they're not here. They are here. And many of them don't like to speak up because they're not sure how their friend might, react to them being a dreamer or a DACA student. Secondly, what we can do is we can contact our legislators, ask them to pass a clean DACA bill that will put these students on a pathway to citizenship and where they will no longer have to fear deportation. And lastly, I think something that we could all live by is, we all go through tough times in our lives. We all face adversity. Sometimes we fight struggles within ourselves that the majority of the world will never know. But, we can turn to our friends and maybe even a stranger that we are here for them, that we love them, that we see you. Then maybe sometimes that will all it take for somebody to know that they're accepted here. Thank you.